Hello and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gregory Holtz, Diversity and Inclusion Liaison, and today's Diversity Speaks series is Breaking Barriers, Embracing the Colors of Unity. This is a recorded session, so please be respectful and place yourself on mute during the presentation. If anyone has needs for captions, it can be accessed by pressing the More tab, which is in the upper right-hand corner, then Language and Speech, and finally turn on live speech. If you have any questions, please place them in the chat and we'll address them at the end of this presentation. Now, let me introduce to you the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, Chad Dion Lassiter, for opening remarks. The floor is yours, E.D. Lassiter.
Thank you so much, Gregory. I want to thank Gregory. I want to thank our Director of Communications, Amanda Brothman, Stacy Waters, and all those who have engaged in getting us to this space on this particular day. I'm humbled and honored because for me, when I think about this amazing speaker that you are going to hear today, she is she's not a person that just comes at this work from a theoretical perspective. She has a lived experience. And though I have read the live stories of people like Ida B. Wells and Fannie Lou Hamer, she has a very captivating story. It just resonates with me. And I just want to publicly give her flowers on this beloved community virtual platform by thanking you for being a prayer warrior, being a supporter of the PHRC, and personally being a solid confidant, comrade, and friend of me. And so I'm just so very excited. I want to thank all of you for being here on this Friday. And once again, we'd be remiss if we did not thank our ASL interpreter, Laura. It's not just art craft, it's a science, it's a discipline. And so just having ASL here is just really, really wonderful. So I'm just going to get out of this virtual space by telling all of you, put on your metaphoric seatbelts because Hagir is a remarkable woman, a remarkable human being, and a remarkable social change agent. Gregory, as always, thank you for allowing me this space just to bring greetings on behalf of the PHRC commissioners, the PHRC staff, and the beloved virtual community. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, E.D. Hagir Elsheikh is the chairwoman and CEO of Hagir Network, HSE Staffing Agency LLC, and Tomorrow's Smile. Hagir is an entrepreneur, motivational speaker, political analyst, talk show host, producer, author, and philanthropist. Hagir was honored by the state of Pennsylvania in 2018 for Year of the Woman recognition. Please help me welcome Hagir Elsheikh. Hagir, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Gregory, and thank you for having me here. You will file for bankruptcy in the first year of your business. That's what the business consultant told me when I shared with him my vision and asked for his advice. I met with him thinking I would get advice on how to start my business in healthcare. I went there fully realizing that the task would not be an easy one. I told him about all the experiences I had as a nurse and about the reputation I had built with both the hospitals and my patient. I told him I had put in the time. After he listened to me, he said, "You have all the ingredients to succeed. You are a nurse, so you already know the field in which your company will serve. You have a great personality, you are knowledgeable, and you have the will." I was very flattered and soaking it all in, but soon the but came. "I don't want to sound negative," he said, "but I will be honest with you. You will file for bankruptcy in the first year of your business." He rattled off a list of reasons why I was doomed to fail. He said, "You are a woman, you are a Black woman, you are an immigrant, and you have an accent. So you don't stand a chance in the business field and you will file bankruptcy your first year." So in half an hour meeting with this business consultant, he reduced all my life experience, my struggles, and everything that I have been through to let me know that I am not good enough. And that as a woman, a Black woman, and an immigrant, I will not stand the chance in starting and keeping a business. He tied my success to my cultural identity, not my expertise and abilities. So some of you might say, we don't know you. So let me just take you back and do a proper introduction. I am Hagir Elsheikh, Sudanese American, and currently live in Cumberland County. But I was born and raised in a small village in Sudan, which is in Northeast Africa. I cannot possibly sum up my life and what I went through in a few hours, but allow me to give you just few of the challenges I had to face in Sudan. I was raised during a time when women were not seen as fully equal to men and had many restrictions placed on them. Strict traditional roles were all that was available to most women in my generation and many generations before me. Restriction like unfair treatment, limited opportunity in education, college placement, job choices, etc. The list goes on and on. But I was lucky to be born into a family that loved, supported, and encouraged all of their children to be independent and strong. As a result of being raised around politically active family members, I was easily able to see the inequality and unfair treatment. So I began to protest. I would help organize, speak to crowds, and call out the injustice wherever it lived. When I was 12 years old, a rogue military coup overthrew the democratic government in 1989, forcing Sudan into a dictatorship. Life changed after the coup. The government began silencing their people and guaranteeing their existence through torture and violence. That forced many to leave the country and become refugees. I became more involved in politics during my high school, and my activism grew stronger in college. I helped to organize and participated in rallies and peaceful protests. I became one of a few female speakers and activists for the opposition Democratic Forefront. So basically, like the Democratic Party here. Unfortunately for me, this meant I was seen as a threat to the Sudanese government. My political action were not without a cost, and I paid dearly in the form of both mental and physical torture. I was often beaten and whipped with anything they could find, wood, metal, you name it. I was verbally, physically, and sexually assaulted, denied water and food, and forced to stand for hours on end. It is not easy to be a woman in Sudan, especially during my time, demanding equality and asking for your rights. But again, it is not easy to be a woman anywhere for that matter. I will just mention two of the many incidents that happened to me during my high school and college in Sudan. The first one was during high school. After a peaceful rally, we were detained by the oppressor. I was hung by my hand from a tree in the middle of a yard of what we call a ghost house. The name says it all. It is a place where the government takes activists to torture them, and the place is unknown to the public until recent year. Recent years, people start to know and hear about the ghost house because victims start to come out and start to speak, or the survivors of them. They often take us in their cars, cover our eyes, or surround us so we don't see where they are taking us. After they hung me, they started. When one person got tired of beating me, another would take his place. This torture went on for 10 hours. I was hurting from my head to my heels, and at some point in any prolonged torture as this, you become numb. You don't feel anything. You are tired, but you cannot move as you are still tied up. I remember smelling my own blood. I still smell it when I close my eyes. And this is over 24 years, actually close to 26 years, but I still get choked up when I talk about this incident. Before sunrise, they untied me, threw me in the back of a pickup truck, and drove me to my house. When they arrived at my front door, two of them reached back and threw me out near our front door like a trash bag. No regards to me as a human. And that moment, I did not remember anything after that. other than hearing my father's voice. When I woke up the next day in my own bed, every inch of my swollen body was aching in pain. For a long time, I could only lie on my stomach because my back was basically cut. It took a month for me to recover from this. But to add to the insult, after this incident, they prevented me from returning to school and expelled me. I still managed to finish high school, studying from home, and I went on to college where I continued my activism. During this time, the dictatorship government continued to gain strength. Additional rights were removed and more lives were lost as they started shipping young graduates to fight in a civil war between the North and the South in Sudan. Throughout my college, I still spoke publicly and joined others in organizing events. Often, these peaceful events were interrupted by arrest, detention, torture. Some people lost their life uh, from my college years. At one point, after a peaceful rally, we were chased out of college by government officials and many were arrested. I was seriously injured that day during the clash and was bashed in the head with a metal bar. If you look closely to my forehead, you will see a scar that I normally, when I'm talking to people, you will see me touching, feeling that area. It's a constant reminder of where I've been and how far I have come. I was forced to hide at a friend's house because the government let it known that anyone who killed me and my fellow leaders would gain favor and not face any legal consequences. So after that incident, life became so hard. And I was able to flee the country with the help of friends, family, and the United Nations. I was flown to Egypt, and then my journey as a refugee began. As a refugee in Egypt waiting to be settled here in the US or anywhere in the world, your fate is unknown. You, your name is put there, there is a list. You have to go every day and check that list to make sure that you are on the list and you have hope for the future, or you are going to still continue living in poverty. I had no food. I was almost homeless during that time, living off dried bread and black tea, fearing the unknown. And during that time, I learned I was pregnant. And being in a new country and pregnant and poor, that was a scary spot to be in. I got depressed and thought about ending it all. Suicide was something that crossed my mind because it was hard to see that light at the end of the tunnel. But I was all hopeful that a refugee status will fix it all. And refugees, just like myself at that time, often feel once they escape the intolerance, the poverty, the abuse, the prejudice of their homeland, the worst is over. They quickly realize and learn that their desperate journey is just beginning. I did find home here in Pennsylvania in 2001, and soon enough, I became a victim of domestic violence. So truly, when I say anything could go wrong with one person had happened to me at some point in my life, I am not exaggerating. But what I just shared with you is an example of many struggles and tragedies. But there is also triumph. That is what led me to write my memoir detailing my journey. And for that exact reason, I called the memoir Through Tragedy and Triumph. I am someone who keeps pushing regardless. So when there was no way out, I made a way out. I started from zero 3 times in my life, went to school again. I started a business and a nonprofit, and I was able to finally see that light at the end of the tunnel. Um, if you remember at the beginning, I talked about the business consultant and what he said to me. That was all I needed to say for him to say to push me to work harder. That day, I told him he was wrong and that I would reach out in a few years. On my second year anniversary, I called him. And I also called him back on my 5th year anniversary. Yes, I did. Uh, Maybe when he was talking to me at that time, he didn't have bad intention. Maybe he was just trying to advise me from his personal experience. But was he wrong? I had to learn the hard way here after I survived everything as a newcomer. I had to learn that he was right to an extent, but he did not calculate who I am, my strengths, and that it will take more than saying no to me to make me stop dreaming and believing in myself. But during the first 6 months, like I kept trying to keep holding onto the hope and thinking it's going to get better. The 6 months I was going, trying to push my business, and I heard more no's than yeses. The same people who celebrated me working for their companies did not like me building a place of my own. Hospital CEOs who used to ask for me by name because I was a good nurse and I know I was good at what I was doing. They said no to me doing the same exact job, just under a different title. A CEO at one of the hospital did not know I could hear her from outside of her office after I dropped my contract and left. She said to her assistant, who does she think she is coming from? I don't know where, and wants to be a CEO just like me. At that moment, I felt so small, and I wanted to go back and tell her I did not want to be like her. I don't want to make anyone feel the way she made me feel. And instead, I just walked away. I knew I wouldn't get that contract. That was the moment when I started to doubt myself. And if you know me, you know that I am that person who always believed in my abilities. I was my number one cheerleader and fan, and I don't just try to inspire and motivate others, but I also encourage myself. I push myself beyond my limits because I know I can do it. But the two people above did make me think, what if I'm not good enough? What if I'm not enough? For a moment, I let them stay in my head rent free, and I almost stopped fighting. I got tired of fighting every day, from my personal to my work struggle. I didn't understand that sometimes you can kill your own dreams and visions by telling it to the wrong person. And I did tell my vision to the wrong people at that time. I learned the hard way that most of the time when people treat you differently, it is not because of you, it is because of what you represent to them. They either view you as a threat or they don't see you as someone who can be more, who can do more. They look at your success as a reflection of their failure. For me, I did everything I could to set myself up for success, but sometimes it is hard to succeed when everything is against you. When you are swimming upstream, you are sailing against the wind and everything in between, alone and with no tool. I share this not because I have a unique experience, not because I am, a superwoman, but this is one of many examples I had to face to get to where I am today. This is an example of unequal opportunity faced by minority women daily. We often work harder than our counterpart, not because we lack the skills or drive, but because of the preconceived notion tied to our identity. Minority women will have to be 10 times better just to get to the same exact job. They are expected to bring their A game to the job, but not try too hard to succeed and make it their own. Be smart, but not too smart, or you will become intimidating to others. Be strong, but not to the point where others will fear you. Be proud, but not cocky. Ask for help, but don't ask too much. Expect rejection, like what happened to me, but don't get upset. Try to succeed without help. The list goes on, and I don't need to remind you of everything that uh, other people face. So basically, become something from nothing is not an easy thing. Viola Davis said it in her acceptance speech. You cannot win an Emmy or an Oscar for a role that does not exist. I will say through my experience, it is the same thing, whether it's an Emmy, Oscar, Grammy, or a business. If you don't have the same opportunities as the rest of the world, you will not get the chance to succeed or make it to the finish line. And if you make it, it will be with real blood, sweat, and tears. I guess that's what led all of us to discuss diversity, equity, and inclusion every day in any place. And as someone who knows firsthand how it feels to be looked at differently, unheard, underappreciated, and disrespected, I can tell you it's not a good place to be in. It is unfair to put two people at the same starting point, but not provide the same tools and expect both of them to be there and make it to the finish line. So when we talk about providing opportunities or being in a land of opportunity, are we giving equal opportunities to everyone? Are we providing the tools, equal tools for everyone to succeed and reach their maximum potential? When we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we talk about having a field that is not leveled. We talk about opportunities directed towards some people and not others. Yes, you can succeed regardless. And I'm sitting here just because I'm a living proof that you can beat the odds. But why do we have to beat the odds? Why do we have to work harder to achieve the same results? It can't stay this way. It shouldn't stay that way. As someone who's been through a lot, and I just give you some of the examples, I shouldn't have to fight for the same rights that others receive easily. But we all know that it happens daily at our workplace, our personal life, even our friends. And we know that racism, sexism, all the isms still exist. And we still have to keep fighting and pushing every day. And someone will use our differences against us. That happened to me more than once. They will tell us that we are not good enough or simply too different. I was told often that I am an exception for an immigrant. And I am an exception for a Sudanese person. I'm an exception for a Black woman. You hear that a lot. And unless you are put in that spot, you will not know how that feels. I am here today to talk to you all as someone who's different, and I'm embracing how different I am. I'm good enough, I'm strong enough, I'm smart enough, and I'm simply enough. And I hope all of you feel the same way about yourself or someone in your surrounding. But when you listen to my story, and I'm sure you're going to listen to so many other stories with your diversity talk, remember that change begins with each one of you. There will be times when you will be turned away, or you will see someone around you being turned away. Times when you will be told to take less and be less. Sometimes when they will either dim your light or they will dim others around you's light. This is the time when we must all act. You don't need to experience any of what I just shared firsthand to care, to listen, and to take an action, or to have that uncomfortable conversation, or to be bold, or to dare to challenge the status quo. You could be an ally, an advocate, all the time. This is a lifetime commitment. You can help create communities and embrace everyone, regardless of their background, and truly embody the principle of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I started the network, the Hagir Network, and our slogan was be the change you want to see in the world. So let's all do that. And I'm hoping that by you listening to me today and giving me the time to just share with you some of the struggles that I faced, to just remember this is not a unique experience. This is happening more often than I would like to say. And us doing something every day is what's going to break that cycle. I want to truly thank you, Chad, and thank you, Laura, Gregory, everyone for listening to me and putting up with me for the past, 27 minutes? Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That was a beautiful story of strength and triumph. And while we have time, I'm going to open it up so that the people in the chat can ask you questions more about your life experience. And so before I ask my own question, I'm going to give people a chance to come up and either put something in the chat or come off of mute and ask you about you.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. I'm Lauren Damon. I'm the HR director for PHRC. First of all, let me put my camera on. Really quick, during the time of your abuse, how did you find your strength, or where did you find your strength that you made it over to the other side?
This is my kids, and you're gonna laugh at this. They said I have toxic positivity. And sometimes I tell them, if this is what toxic positivity will make you do, then be toxic positive. I always looked at the glass half full. I am someone always like to view things, people as good. I don't. I mean, sometimes this is really hurts you, but I try to view the glass half full. I don't look at things as something bad happened to me and it's going to break me, but I always try to see what would that help. How can I use my own personal experiences? And the talk show that I had, it was a coping mechanism for me. And I always say that it is a therapy for me to sit down and talk. It is not just me sharing my experience. It's not easy. I can't lie to you and say I always felt hopeful. When I was at Egypt, sitting there, found out that I was pregnant. The whole 8 months we were waiting to be settled and to find out if I am going to survive, if I'm going to find another place to call home. During that time, I thought about committing suicide more than once. We were in the third floor. Can you hear me well? I dropped my earpiece. Um, I I will go up. There is a building facing the United Nations, the IOM, and there is a 18th floor. I will go up and think about ending it all. I thought about that more than once. I'm not gonna lie. Um, it's not easy to see the light. You feel like everything that you're doing is not getting nowhere. I lost hope in God. I will look and say, you know what, enough. Like find someone else to mess with. I had enough. But just you keep looking around you. The pregnancy was hope in disguise. Malaz came and she helped me. And then through my domestic violence, I looked at her and I thought about myself. I survived everything that happened in Sudan. So when you face uh, like when being strong is the only option, let's just put it this way, when being strong is the only way out, is the only option you have, then you won't have anything but to be strong, and you won't be able to realize how strong you are until you survive one. Once you survive something, that will give you a way to look at yourself and say, if I could do this, then I think I can do that one. And it's just like a rubble effect. It's goes both ways, either surviving or it will make you go and feel like I'm going to end my life. I'm not sure
I
if that makes sense.
yeah,
Thank you.
I have two questions. One is because this is heavy.
Yeah.
One I think will bring a level of levity to this, and that is if you're comfortable, share with us um the role that music plays in soothing the soul and your love affair for Usher. And if you feel comfortable, maybe your top three songs of Usher. But what I'm getting at for the audience is Hagir at one particular point in time talks about music and how music is transcendent in the moments that we find ourselves against the
Yeah.
backdrop of forms of resiliency. If you could just give us that.
So let me just share one thing with you quick. I spoke about my story many times before, and this is the first time I actually finished saying that part, and I talk fast because I knew I'm gonna like I'll cry. It is still so uh, like this is happened in 1996, right? and it's still so surreal, and I feel it. But through it all, like what you just shared, Chad, in Egypt, while we were waiting to settle, two things that actually helped me to survive: watching Friends and listening to Usher. And I think that's why it's so weird, because some things, like we grew up listening to Bob Marley, Nelson Mandela. I read every book, and if you look at our curriculums here in the United States, it is lacking, because in Sudan, when I was going to school, I knew Pennsylvania. We knew uh, all the states. I could have named what is famous in Pennsylvania, what is famous in New York. Like, we learn world history, geography, all of that. When I came here, the curriculums does not give you anything. So for someone who grew up as like a fan of Nelson Mandela, listening to Bob Marley, listening to uh, activists, and just reciting poet about, revolution and how to make your life better. Going to Egypt, staying there, I knew the English because we study English in Sudan, but the accent was so like hard, and I was preparing myself. I'm always trying to be one step ahead. So I start to open the TV, like the American TV, and there comes Friends and then Usher. So I got hooked with those two. They were the basics for me to start learning how to like speak the accent or understand the accent, because Sudan was preoccupied by Great Britain, so the language is different. We speak British English. So Usher is not someone that you will look at my life and say someone that it will be a motivation for me, but it was. And all of his songs are my favorite. And I got the chance to go actually meet him, sit with him, take pictures. So it's like it was something that I needed. Um, Mentally, you have to do that break. If you are familiar with what's happening in Sudan now, there is a war going on in Sudan currently. The regime that I spoke about, al-Bashir regime, that tortured me and many other activists, was uh, in 2019. There was a revolution, a beautiful revolution, and that revolution got rid of the dictatorship. But to their surprise, a military coup happened and took over Sudan now. And soon, in like 2 years after, they started a war, and the country is as worse than I remember it. People are dying in like large numbers. Rape is happening every day. I was close to being raped. I wasn't raped personally, but two people that I knew from that time, and the numbers almost 14,000 are raped now. So the Sudan that I talked about is even worse now. It is not an easy place or an easy like memory to have, because everything that I remember about Sudan is gone now.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, I always find it interesting when people talk about the experience of people saying like, "Oh, you're not like X, you're not like
Yeah.
Y." Can you talk more about the fact of how that is like doubly dismissive for both you as a person and your category of people?
Yeah, yeah. A stereotype is something that we all like face, and you're gonna be surprised if I tell you, even in Sudan, there is racism. It is a country in Africa, but the northern, they have light skin. The same discrimination that you face here. I'm considered white in Sudan. Isn't that funny? And you treat, yeah, seriously. And the south, the further south you go, the darker the skin, and the treatment is different. So in Sudan, when you hear that word, There is an N word in Sudan too, by the way. And a lot of people don't know that the culture is like basically similar. So when I came here, people automatically look at you like they perceive immigrant refugees, someone from a different place, as a threat. That's why traveling is antidote of ignorance, right? You have to travel. You have to even if you don't have the chance to travel around you here in Pennsylvania, it's a melting pot. Like go talk to someone because everyone that left, no one leave home. I wrote a poem. There is a poem by Warsan Shire called Home. So I wrote my own rendition of Home. And um, no one leave the place that they know, the known for the unknown, unless that known is disaster. So when you look at someone here, come here from a different place, they have a story, they have something that they were running from, they have the same struggle, it might be just different. By us getting to know the people around us, the culture, the different culture, their struggles, everything they have been through, it will give you a different appreciation and understanding. So having a stereotype, either here in America or in Sudan or anywhere in the world, it is not something new. And we have a set, we put
Unmute yourself.
oh, I muted myself, sorry.
It's
Can you
okay.
hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
I dropped my earpiece, I think. Can you hear me? What's the last thing you heard?
You were talking more about the colorism in Sudan at that point.
Okay. So a stereotype is not something new, or you're not just going to see it here in the US. People have a preconceived notion that you should, if you look this way, you should act this way. They put women in a box. They put Black women in a box. They put immigrant in a box. So when I came here, my first struggle, and luckily now Dr. Ski at Hack changed this. I went to Hack. I didn't need ESL because I knew English, but I was the only Black woman entering the nursing school. And at that time, one of the teachers just put me in her head, like she did not like me. I was in the dean's list. I was getting 4.0 GPA, everything. So she was just following me around because for some reason she truly thought I shouldn't be here. I don't belong. And the other student around me, they were trying to make her understand, but the way they were trying to make it sound, they're like, no, she's not like that. She's a good one. At that I didn't understand at that time what they meant. When they were saying that, I thought this is a compliment. But it's a compliment that is filled with racism. It's filled with the stereotype. They already put me in a box, and they had the Sudanese people, an immigrant, as someone who is not to be trusted, someone who shouldn't be here. You don't belong. So everywhere I go, they look at me and they say, "Where are you from?" They don't think someone from Africa could look like me, right? And when I say I'm from Sudan, they're like, "Oh, really? You don't look Sudanese." I'm like, "Okay, what Sudanese look like?" You don't sound, you speak proper, or you have an accent, but your accent is not that bad. Like, what do you have in mind? One sociology teacher at Hack, and I'm giving a like really applaud to Ski because he truly changed the environment at Hack. Sociology teacher was sitting there in a class talking to people about how people in Africa, just generalizing Africa as a country, not a continent. He said people there use the outdoor bathroom. They don't use toilet paper. So I stopped them and I said, what are you talking about? Like, I can show you picture from Sudan. There is civilization. Yes, there is area where villages, areas that you won't find running water, but there are areas that are, they do have, we do have a bathroom. We do have this and that. And he gave me a C, but that's beyond the point because you can't like try to correct people on what they have. The media plays a huge role on making, if you turn your TV now, all you see is those commercial in the land of, that I spent money, sent money to Africa. Africa is a poor place. They're hungry, starving, waiting for someone to save them. And that's a generalization. There are poor people. There are areas that it's not, there is no technology like here, it's different. But again, when you have a country that is facing war for 50, 60 years, fighting just for the basics, the hierarchy of need, if you don't meet the safety, the shelter, the food, the basics, you're not going to be able to reach that self-actualization and become something. And it's part of why people in Africa are poor when Africa as a continent is one of the richest places. Sudan has gold, then has uranium. It's used to be, they call it the world basket. That's because of the Nile River. Cotton comes from Sudan, Arabic gum. Like I could give you a list of things that people don't know. You don't hear that because when you have a place there is peace and unity, people are going to start to find their self-actualization. And that's why many countries are putting their hand in Africa, trying to keep the war going, funding the war, keeping it under struggle all the time. And again, just to quickly answer your question, that's something I hear every day. Even now, when I say to someone, um, like I was at an event and they introduced me, they said she's the owner of this, this, this. And the guy came to me and said, um, my name is John or whatever. And he said, what you do? He wasn't there for the introduction. And I said, I own a business. And he looked at me like, oh, okay. So that, oh, okay, was not like, oh, good job, or like something that normal. He looked at me as I'm a super person, superwoman, or you're different, or you're a businesswoman, just like that CEO. And that whatever I told you, this is, I heard her. Like she said, I don't know who she thinks she is to come here and want to be a CEO like me. So people think, when they think of CEOs, when they think of business owners, when they think of someone who make it, automatically you will think of a white person, a white man first, and then white woman, then the list. As a Black immigrant, you're way down that list. There is an exercise that was done by one of the speakers before, and he said, he asked everyone, just say the first thing that comes to your mind when I say a job title. When I say nurse, what the first thing come to your mind, Gregory?
Female.
Yep. When I say a president,
White
Male.
male.
a white male. When I say a firefighter,
Male.
White male.
male. When I say a cop,
Male.
Male.
yeah. So there is a stereotype, or there is a way that we were all taught, and that's not just you or me. You see, you're a Black man and a Black Sudanese woman, Sudanese American woman, but I still think of the same thing. When I came here, 2001, the first thing when I worked, when I got my first car, I was so proud of myself. I went to PSCCU, got the loan. It was like an $8,000. It was a lot of money at that time, but it was a brand new car. The first thing that happened when I left, I was driving and I took a wrong exit. I got stopped by a police. And the first thing he asked me, he said, "Is this your car?" Because the car was new. So he automatically looked at me, and my accent was heavier than now at that time. I like, "What are you doing driving a nice car?" So it's like those things that we face and we don't acknowledge. People do it daily without even thinking about it. So it's there. And in order for us to change it, we need to have this uncomfortable conversation. We need to talk to people and have hear their experience, hear what happened to them. And I could sit here and tell you every day. Another thing that you want to keep in mind, someone like me automatically have no trust on law, on police. I was tortured by government officials. Everyone that was an activist from Africa, I guarantee you, in any country in Africa, they have no trust in the policing system because it's corruption. You can pay your way out. You can buy your way in. You can get in trouble for just saying, you don't agree with them.
Yeah.
You get stopped in a traffic violation, and if you don't pay money, they will give you a fine. Like there is no law and order. So when I came here, automatically, I am like hesitant. I'm scared from you as a policeman. So training our police official, training people to understand. Um, we have a large amount of immigrant and refugees, not just in Pennsylvania, but in the U.S. It's built on refugees, right? So the fact that up to this point, people don't understand that um, looking at someone while you're talking to them is disrespect in some countries. I had to do training with nurses in different, I did sensitivity trainings with nurses before. I had to talk to them because they had a large amount of people from Sudan, from the Middle East, like the northern east part of Africa. So I had to talk to them about appropriation, about a woman will not feel comfortable talking to a man. um, Sometimes if the husband in the room, you cannot ask me certain questions. Like there is certain things that it's just a taboo. It's not acceptable,
Yeah.
and we don't talk about that as we should.
I wanted to jump in real quick. Gregory, we have some hands up.
Yes, Stephanie, if you wanted to come up.
I just wanted to say that as somebody who knows you and knows your heart, I just it's more of a comment than a question. I just want to say thank you for helping women to be seen and people to be seen and heard, and your compassion and your empathy goes a very long way. You don't just walk the walk and talk the talk, you are the real deal. And I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you.
All right, we definitely have some hands up. I think the next one is Maya. That's how you say your name? If you want to come up.
Yeah, yes. I just wanted to say, this conversation is so impactful. And coming from somebody who, knows Hagir this, the same way, you really have to go through these life experiences to get to get where you need to be in life. So no matter how hard it is, or how sad or how angry or painful it is, you turned it around and you made it into something beautiful. And you impact me every day. Every day it's like I'm talking to you, a new person. And I want to thank you for sharing your story, because sharing your story is hard and it never gets easy. But the fact that you can, speak it and be brave, I thank you for that.
Thank you, Maya.
Thea, you want to come up?
How,
You're muted, dear.
sure.
If you're having difficulty with your mic, I can read your question that you put in the chat.
Okay.
Okay.
We hear you now.
Oh, yeah, you're good now.
Okay, sorry. So we're presenting the Pittsburgh Racial Justice Summit, where our theme is from othering to bridging, reconnecting for social change. And I apologize if you addressed this earlier before I got on, but what do you recommend as ways for people to bridge their differences in order to promote social justice?
Education. Everybody hear me, they will know that I'm a big advocate for education, sharing experiences, and having those hard conversation. Um, there are no bridges, gaps. We made gaps. Uh, People are. I still do believe. I get hurt a lot, don't, but I still do believe people are good in nature. Circumstances exist, and make them who they are. um, there's few exceptions, but with communicating, and it's easier to relate to someone or something, to understand the problem when you can put a face to it. You can read to me about equality, about building the bridges, about inclusion, about all of that. But if I don't see it, if I don't know one, it's just a human nature. If I don't know a person that faced some struggle, or I heard it, I won't relate to it. As you know, hard it is for me. I know it's easy for us to keep saying, regardless, you don't have to uh, live the experience to be compassionate. And this is being human, right? But not living the experience, you are not going to know. Not hearing it from someone who had been there, it is not going to make you want to do something. It's just human nature. We act when we know someone. If I can relate to your problem, just with like domestic violence, when I start talking about domestic violence, all the Sudanese community felt I'm airing my dirty laundry. I mean, it was a taboo to just talk about it. I start talking, I received messages and harassment and all of that. And now, maybe 12 years after, people can actually talk about their experience in the community without feeling that they are going to be shunned. They're going to be labeled as bad wife, or what did you do? Those questions. So it's good to have the experience. It's good to have um, events, but try to reach out to people who are from, like, if you're focusing on immigration, get a panel of immigrants. Have them come talk, share few words about their experience, because it makes it a lot easier for someone to sit and hear, and then they will remember. Oh yeah, when you talk about um, living in poverty. Uh, I lived off dry bread and tea in Egypt. You are going to remember that. You're going to remember that it is not easy being a refugee. It is not easy trying to navigate. You probably know that having a language barrier, being in the United States, starting over is hard, but you're not going to know how hard it is until you talk to someone who actually can sit down and tell you. It doesn't have to be on like an event like this. You can just go in like your neighborhood or anywhere that there is a gathering, and simply ask someone, how are they doing? Like, be interested, like have show interest on knowing where they come from. A lot of people ask, how are you doing? And not expecting to, like, they're not going to wait for the answer. It's something we do. Hey, Gregory, how are you? Like, you just say it being polite, but mean it, truly mean it. and listen when someone is talking to you. Hearing someone and listening to someone are two different things.
Absolutely,
Thank you.
absolutely.
You're welcome.
So I just want to pass it back to Edie for some closing remarks. But before I do that, I just want to thank you so much for your presentation and your story and ability to share with us that story of triumph and power. We really thank you. Edie, I'll pass it back to you.
And I'll just be very brief. Want to thank you once again, Gregory. Want to thank you, Hagir. Want to also acknowledge our chairman, Chairman Joel Bolstein, and want everyone on this virtual to know that the moment that we find ourselves in, the PHRC, we're learning, and we're also open for you all to give us some advice. We tackle all forms of xenophobia. At this moment, we do have a charge to really address anti-Semitism and also address Islamophobia. And that's notwithstanding, there's no hierarchy in suffering and pain, but we will be partnering with Hagir and others as we try to, from just who we are as PHRC, provide safeties and things of that nature and security, excuse me, for the people of the Commonwealth. Hagir, remarkable. Remarkable. And thank you so very much. And we look forward to continuing to partner with you. And as we go into the weekend, we want to thank every single person for taking your time out, because it's not just PHRC people here. Hagir has a community of love as well, a community of social change agents, and there are also external and internal stakeholders who join us for these as well. So once again, we want to end like we opened. We want to thank our amazing speaker. We want to thank Gregory, Director Amanda Brothman, Stacey Waters for getting us here, and Laura for the art and science and discipline of ASL for those of us who need it. Thank you. Be good to yourselves and be good to others. Take care.
Thank you.